I think I didn't do anything wrong, just had a little fun at the club with my friends, and the photo was all laughs. So I was stunned when my fiancé sent me official-looking papers the next morning, saying he couldn't trust me anymore. All this, just for sitting on someone's knee for a silly picture? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. The bass still echoed in my ears the next morning as I stood in our silent kitchen, the night's glitter gone dull in daylight. Nate's note lay on the counter, its neat handwriting heavier than any hangover. We need to talk. I saw the photo. The photo. The one that had felt harmless in the moment, Leo's arm around me, my smile a little too bright, my hand too comfortable on his shoulder. Online, it looked like what it was. A wife trying to feel wanted, and a man happy to oblige. I'd spent half the night convincing myself it was nothing, that I was allowed to have fun, to feel alive, to forget the endless routine of bills, dinner, bedtime. But standing in that quiet kitchen, the lie collapsed. I wasn't just a woman having fun. I was a wife who wanted attention badly enough to humiliate her husband publicly. The phone in my hand felt like a live wire, Leo's text still glowing. Had an amazing time tonight. You're incredible, Rox. I deleted it, but it didn't erase what had happened. The damage had already gone viral. I looked toward the stairs. Claire was still asleep, her door cracked open, her small world still untouched. For now. I wanted to believe Nate would understand, that he'd see it for what I told myself it was. A mistake, not a betrayal. But I knew better. He'd already seen the truth, frozen forever in a single photo, the moment I stopped being his wife and started being a stranger. I woke up to an empty house and the sound of Claire's cartoons drifting up from the living room. The events of the night before felt surreal, like something that had happened to someone else. Surely Nate was overreacting. It was just a photo. I found Claire curled up on the couch in her pajamas, eating cereal from the box. "Where's Daddy?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. "He left early," she said without looking up from the TV. He seemed sad. Guilt twisted in my stomach, but I pushed it away. Nate was being dramatic as usual. I made coffee and checked my phone. 17 notifications on Instagram, 3 missed calls from my sister Erin, and 2 from my mother. The front door opened just as I was rehearsing my explanation. Nate walked in carrying a manila envelope, his face unreadable. He looked tired, older somehow, and for a moment I felt a pang of something. Regret? No, that wasn't right. I hadn't done anything wrong. "Claire, go get dressed," he said quietly. "Grandpa Martin wants to take you to the park." "But I want to stay." "Go get dressed, sweetheart." She looked between us, sensing the tension, then padded upstairs. Nate waited until her door closed before turning to me. "We need to talk," he said, setting the envelope on the kitchen table. I forced a laugh. "About what? The photo?" "Nate, you're being ridiculous. It was just a girls' night out." "Just a girls' night out," he repeated, his voice eerily calm. "Is that what you call sitting on another man's lap?" "It was Leo. You know Leo. We were just taking a silly picture." I crossed my arms, going on the defensive. "I can't believe you're making such a big deal out of this." "Can you?" He pulled out his phone, opening Instagram. "Let me read some of these comments. Where's hubby? Get it, girl. Roxane living her best life. Do you see how this looks? I can't control what other people comment." My voice was rising now. "You're being paranoid and controlling. I'm allowed to have friends, Nate. I'm allowed to have fun." "Friends." He said the word like it tasted bitter. "Is that what you call the man who's been texting you at work? The one who bought all your drinks last night? The one whose lap you chose to sit on for the whole internet to see?" My heart pounded. How did he know about the texting? "You've been spying on me?" I've been watching my wife pull away from our family for months, he said, his voice still maddeningly calm. I've been watching her light up when her phone buzzes, watching her dress up for work events that seem to happen every week now. You're being insane, I snapped. Just because you're content to live like an old married couple doesn't mean I have to be. I'm 32, Nate. I'm not dead. And I'm your husband, he said quietly. Or have you forgotten that? I stared at him, at his tired eyes and rumpled shirt, and felt a surge of resentment. When had he become so boring, so predictable? When had our marriage become this suffocating routine of work, dinner, bedtime, repeat? Maybe if you paid half as much attention to me as you do to your legal briefs, I wouldn't need to find excitement elsewhere, I said, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. Something flickered across his face. Hurt, maybe, or disappointment. But his voice remained steady. Elsewhere. Interesting choice of words. You know what I mean? Do I? He picked up the envelope. Because I'm starting to think I don't know you at all. Before I could ask what was in the envelope, his father's car pulled into the driveway. Martin Dorsey had never been my biggest fan, and from the way he barely acknowledged me as Claire ran to him, I could tell he'd seen the photo too. After they left, I called Erin. Finally, she answered on the first ring. Mom and I have been dying to hear about last night. That photo was everything. Nate's being a complete ass about it, I said, settling onto the couch. He's acting like I cheated or something. Over a photo? God, Roxane, he really is as boring as you said. You looked amazing, by the way. Leo's gorgeous. It's not about Leo, I lied. It's about Nate trying to control me. He's making me feel guilty for having friends, for having fun. That's emotional abuse, Erin said matter-of-factly. You can't let him isolate you from your support system. Emotional abuse. The words resonated. Wasn't that exactly what this was? Nate trying to make me feel guilty for living my life? You should come over, Erin continued. Mom's making her famous lasagna. We can strategize how to handle Mr. Stick in the Mud. I spent the afternoon at my mother's house, surrounded by the familiar comfort of unconditional support. Mom clucked sympathetically as I recounted Nate's overreaction, while Erin nodded knowingly. Men like Nate think they own their wives, Mom said, refilling my wine glass. Your father was the same way, jealous of every friendship, every moment of happiness that didn't revolve around him. You married too young, Erin added. You never got to explore who you really are. By evening, bolstered by wine and validation, I felt righteous in my anger. I returned home ready for battle, only to find the house empty. No Nate, no Claire, just a cold silence that felt accusatory. My phone buzzed with messages from my friends, screenshots of the group chat Nate had apparently left. Tina had posted, "Some people can't handle their wives having fun," and Michelle had added, "Roxane deserves better than that controlling energy." But it was the last notification that made my blood run cold. Leo was calling. I hesitated, then answered. Hey. Hey yourself. His voice was warm, intimate. I had an amazing time last night. It was fun, I said carefully, suddenly aware that Nate could come home at any moment. I've been thinking about you all day, he continued. About what you said, about some people not knowing how to have fun. Maybe it's time you found someone who does. The implication hung between us, thrilling and terrifying. Leo, I know you're married, he said quickly. I'm not asking you to make any big decisions. I'm just saying, life's short, Rox. You deserve to be happy. After he hung up, I sat in the dark living room, my heart racing. This was getting complicated, but wasn't that what made it exciting? For the first time in years, I felt alive, desired, interesting. When Nate and Claire finally came home, he barely looked at me. Claire hugged me goodnight, but even she seemed distant, confused by the tension crackling through the house. We'll talk tomorrow, Nate said, heading upstairs with that damned envelope. There's nothing to talk about, I called after him. I'm not apologizing for having friends. He paused at the top of the stairs. No one's asking you to apologize for having friends, Roxane, but maybe you should ask yourself if that's really what Leo is to you. As I lay in bed alone, Nate had taken the guest room. I replayed the day's events. Everyone except Nate understood that I'd done nothing wrong. My family, my friends, even Leo himself had validated my feelings. So why did I feel like I was standing at the edge of a cliff, one step away from a fall I couldn't come back from? Monday morning at the office felt different. I'd always enjoyed the attention my weekend stories brought, but today the glances felt more pointed, the whispers more obvious. Leo's desk was visible from mine, and I caught him looking my way several times, that same knowing smile playing on his lips. Rough weekend? My supervisor Janet asked during our morning check-in. Why would you say that? I asked, immediately defensive. You just seem distracted. Everything okay at home? I forced a smile. Everything's fine, just tired from a fun girls' night. But everything wasn't fine. Nate had left that morning without his usual goodbye kiss, and Claire had been unusually quiet during breakfast, picking at her cereal while glancing nervously between us. Around noon, Leo appeared at my desk with 2 coffee cups. Thought you might need this, he said, his voice low and warm. Thanks, I said, acutely aware of Janet watching from her office. You didn't have to. I wanted to. He lingered, his hand brushing mine as I took the cup. About Saturday night, I hope I didn't cause any problems at home. Nothing I can't handle, I said, trying to sound confident. Good, because I'd hate for your husband to keep you from having fun. His smile was sharp, predatory almost. Life's too short to live in a cage, right? After he walked away, I noticed several co-workers exchanging glances. The attention felt intoxicating and dangerous at the same time. My phone buzzed with a text from Erin. Emergency sister lunch. Mom's house now. I found them huddled around Mom's kitchen table, looking like they were planning a revolution. We've been thinking, Erin announced as I sat down, about your situation with Nate. What situation? I asked, though my stomach was already knotting. The controlling behavior, Mom said, sliding a plate of sandwiches toward me. It's escalating, isn't it? The accusations, the jealousy. I thought about the envelope Nate had been carrying, the way he'd looked at me with those tired, disappointed eyes. He's being ridiculous about the photo. It's not about the photo, Erin said seriously. It's about power. He's trying to isolate you, make you feel guilty for having a life outside of him. Has he ever gotten physical? Mom asked, her voice dropping to a whisper. Physical? God, no! I was genuinely shocked. Nate would never... Emotional abuse can be just as damaging, Erin interrupted. Maybe more so, because it's harder to recognize. As they talked, painting Nate as some kind of manipulative monster, I found myself nodding along. Wasn't this exactly how I'd been feeling? Controlled, suffocated, guilty for wanting more from life? You know what you need? Mom said suddenly. A support system. People who understand what you're going through. Like Leo? Erin asked with a sly smile. Leo's just a friend, I protested, but even as I said it, I felt the lie. A friend who appreciates you, Mom corrected, who sees your worth. Maybe it's time Nate had some competition. That evening, emboldened by their support, I decided to host a small dinner party. Nothing elaborate, just a few friends and family to show Nate that I wasn't going to hide or apologize for my social life. Tonight? Nate asked when I told him. Roxane, we really need to talk. We can talk any time, I said breezily. Tonight, I want to enjoy myself with people who actually appreciate my company. I invited Mom, Erin, Tina, Michelle, and on impulse, Leo, just to prove that there was nothing inappropriate about our friendship. The dinner was a disaster from the start. Nate was polite but distant, barely participating in conversation while my guests made increasingly pointed comments about supportive spouses and trusting relationships. Leo, to his credit, seemed uncomfortable with the obvious tension, but Mom and Aaron kept drawing him into conversation, praising his career, his sense of humor, his obvious appreciation for strong, independent women. Some men, Mom said pointedly, glancing at Nate, are secure enough to want their wives to be happy. And some, Aaron added, understand that marriage is a partnership, not ownership. Nate excused himself to check on Claire, who had been unusually quiet during dinner. When he didn't return, I found him in her room, reading her a bedtime story with the kind of gentle patience that used to make me fall in love with him all over again. "Daddy," Claire was saying, "why is everyone mad?" "No one's mad, sweetheart," he said softly. "Sometimes grown-ups just have different ideas about things. Are you and Mommy getting divorced like Emma's parents?" My heart stopped. Nate's eyes met mine over Claire's head, and for a moment, I saw past his calm facade to the pain underneath. "We're working through some things," he said carefully. "But no matter what happens, you know Daddy loves you very much, right?" When I returned to the dining room, Leo was getting ready to leave. "Thanks for dinner," he said quietly. "But I think maybe I should go." "Why?" I asked, suddenly panicked by the thought of him leaving. "You don't have to." "Actually, I do." He glanced toward the stairs where Nate had disappeared. "This isn't what I signed up for, Rox." After everyone left, I found Nate in his study, that damned envelope open on his desk. Papers were spread across the surface, printouts, photos, what looked like legal documents. "What is all this?" I demanded. He looked up at me with those tired eyes. "Evidence," he said simply. "Evidence of what?" "Of the woman I married disappearing," he said quietly. "Of my wife turning into someone I don't recognize." "You're being dramatic." "Am I?" He picked up a photo, the one from Saturday night. "Do you see yourself here, Roxane? Really see yourself?" I looked at the image, at my face flushed with alcohol and excitement, at Leo's possessive arm around my waist, at the way we were looking at each other instead of the camera. "It's just a photo," I whispered, but the words felt hollow. "It's a symptom," he said, standing up, "of something that's been building for months. The late nights at work, the secretive phone calls, the way you light up when anyone mentions Leo's name. You're paranoid." "I'm observant." He walked to the door, then paused. "I'm sleeping at Dad's tonight. Tomorrow we're going to have a real conversation about where this marriage is heading." After he left, I sat alone in the study, staring at the scattered papers. Text message screenshots, social media posts, even what looked like a timeline of my recent behavior. It felt like looking at evidence of someone else's life, someone reckless and selfish who couldn't possibly be me. My phone buzzed. "Leo. Thanks for dinner. Your husband seems intense. Maybe we should cool things down for a while." I stared at the message, feeling something cold settle in my chest. Even Leo was pulling away now. Everyone was abandoning me, making me out to be the villain when all I'd done was try to find a little happiness. But as I climbed the stairs to my empty bedroom, Claire's question echoed in my mind. "Are you and Mommy getting divorced?" For the first time, I wondered if that might actually happen, and for the first time, I wasn't sure how I felt about it. The next morning brought a text from Nate. "Meet me at your parents' house at 7 p.m. We need privacy for this conversation." I spent the day in a fog of anxiety and defiance, alternating between righteous anger and creeping dread. At work, Leo avoided me completely, not even making eye contact when we passed in the hallway. The cold shoulder from someone who'd been so warm and attentive just days before stung more than I wanted to admit. "Everything okay?" Janet asked during our afternoon meeting. "You seem distracted lately." "Just some personal stuff," I muttered, trying to focus on the employee handbook revisions spread across my desk. Well, try to keep personal stuff personal, she said with a meaningful look. We can't have workplace relationships affecting productivity. Workplace relationships. The phrase hit me like a slap. Was that what people were saying about Leo and me? By evening, my nerves were frayed. I arrived at Mom's house to find Nate already there, sitting at the kitchen table with that damned envelope and a new folder I didn't recognize. Mom and Aaron flanked me like bodyguards as I sat down across from him. "This is ridiculous," Aaron announced before anyone could speak. "Roxane doesn't need to justify having friends to you." "Actually," Nate said calmly, "I think she does." He opened the folder and began laying out papers with methodical precision. Especially when those friendships involved deleted text messages, lies about working late, and emotional affairs. Emotional affairs? I laughed, but it sounded shrill even to me. "You're being paranoid." "Am I?" He slid a paper across the table. "These are your phone records, Roxane. 43 calls to Leo's number in the past month. Text messages sent at all hours, including several at 2 a.m. My mouth went dry. "We're friends. Friends talk." "Friends," he repeated, pulling out more papers. "Is that what you call someone you complain to about your boring husband and suffocating marriage?" "How do you—" I started, then stopped. The look in his eyes told me he had more than just phone records. "Leo's not as discreet as you might think," Nate continued, his voice still maddeningly calm. "Apparently, he's been sharing some of your more intimate conversations with his drinking buddies. It got back to someone at my firm." The room spun. Leo had been talking about me? About our private conversations? "You're lying," I whispered. "I wish I was." He pulled out printed screenshots of text messages, my words, complaining about Nate, praising Leo, saying things I'd never wanted anyone else to see. "Where did you get these?" I demanded. "Does it matter?" He leaned back in his chair. "The question is, are they real? Did you tell Leo that you felt trapped in a loveless marriage? Did you say that you deserved better than a man who treated you like a roommate?" I stared at the papers, at my own words thrown back at me. In black and white, they looked so much worse than they had felt when I'd typed them in moments of frustration. "You took those out of context," I said weakly. "Did I?" He pulled out another sheet. "What about this one, from last Friday? I keep thinking about what it would be like if I'd married someone who actually wanted me. Or this one. Sometimes I wonder if I should just leave and start over with someone who appreciates me." "Stop," I whispered, but he continued. "And my personal favorite. Nate would never even notice if I was gone. He's more interested in his law books than his wife." He looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw real anger in his eyes. "For the record, Roxane, I notice everything. Every late night, every secretive phone call, every time you choose to confide in another man instead of your husband." "Nate," Mom started, but he held up a hand. "I'm not finished." He pulled out the photo from Saturday night, but this time, it was printed on legal-sized paper with timestamps and metadata. "This photo was taken at 1:47 a.m. You told me you'd be home by midnight. Your location services show you stayed at the club until 2:30 a.m., then went to an after-hours diner with Leo until 4 a.m. We just talked. I'm sure you did." His voice was bitter now. "Just like you just talked. During all those lunch meetings you never mentioned. Just like you were just being friendly when you told him about our private marriage problems." I felt like I was drowning, each piece of evidence another weight dragging me down. How had he found out so much? How long had he been watching, collecting, building this case against me? "This is stalking," Aaron said suddenly. "He's been spying on you, Roxane. This is exactly the kind of controlling behavior we talked about." "Controlling?" Nate laughed, but there was no humor in it. "I've been trying to save my marriage while my wife conducted an emotional affair with my former classmate. But sure, I'm the problem here." "It wasn't an affair," I said, but the words felt hollow. Looking at the evidence spread across the table, at the pattern of deception and betrayal laid out in black and white, I could see how it looked, how it was. What would you call it? Nate asked quietly. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like my wife fell in love with another man and just hasn't admitted it yet. That's not... I started, then stopped. Was it true? Had I fallen in love with Leo? The attention, the excitement, the way he made me feel special and desired? Wasn't that what love felt like? I want honesty, Nate said, leaning forward. For once in the past 6 months, I want complete honesty. Are you in love with him? The question hung in the air like a blade. I could feel Mom and Aaron watching me, waiting for me to deny it, to paint Nate as the villain in this story. But looking at him across the table, at the man I'd married 8 years ago, I couldn't find the words. I don't know, I whispered finally. Something broke in his face. For just a moment, his careful composure cracked, and I saw the devastation underneath. Then the mask slipped back into place. Thank you, he said quietly, gathering up the papers. That's all I needed to know. Nate, wait. No. He stood up, closing the folder. I'm done waiting. I'm done hoping you'll remember what we used to mean to each other. I'm done being married to someone who wishes she was with someone else. What does that mean? I asked, though I was afraid I already knew. It means you'll be hearing from my lawyer. He walked to the door, then paused. And, Roxane, you might want to call Leo. Tell him he got his wish. You're free to start over with someone who appreciates you. After he left, the kitchen fell silent except for the sound of my ragged breathing. Mom and Aaron tried to comfort me, to spin this as Nate's fault, his overreaction, his inability to handle a strong woman, but their words felt distant and meaningless. My phone buzzed with a text from HR. Please schedule a meeting with me first thing tomorrow morning. We need to discuss some workplace conduct issues. As I stared at the message, the full scope of what I'd lost began to sink in. My marriage, my reputation, possibly my job, all for what? For a man who was now avoiding me, who'd apparently been sharing our private conversations with his friends? I tried calling Leo, but it went straight to voicemail. When I texted him, the response was immediate. I think we should keep things professional from now on. This got too complicated. Sitting in my childhood bedroom that night, surrounded by the remnants of the life I'd thought I wanted to escape, I finally understood what I'd done. I'd traded a good man's love for the thrill of feeling desired by someone who'd never really wanted me at all. But it was too late for understanding. The damage was done, and tomorrow I'd have to face the consequences. The meeting with HR was worse than I'd imagined. Janet sat across from me with a thick file, her expression professionally neutral, but her disappointment clear. We've received several complaints about inappropriate workplace behavior, she began, sliding a formal write-up across the desk. Personal relationships affecting professional conduct, excessive personal phone calls during work hours, and what multiple witnesses describe as unprofessional interactions with Leo Hartman. We're just friends, I said automatically, but the words felt as hollow as they had when I'd said them to Nate. Friends don't typically engage in the behavior described in these witness statements, Janet replied. Extended lunch meetings, intimate conversations in public areas, and what our security footage shows as inappropriate physical contact. Security footage. My stomach dropped. You've been watching me? We monitor all common areas for safety and liability purposes. The footage is quite clear. She pulled out still frames from the security cameras, Leo and me standing too close by the coffee machine, his hand on my shoulder, my hand on his arm, both of us looking at each other with obvious intimacy. This is a formal warning, Janet continued. Any further incidents will result in immediate termination. And Roxane, Leo Hartman has requested a transfer to our downtown office, effective immediately. I stumbled through the rest of the workday in a haze of humiliation. Co-workers who'd once gossiped with me about weekend plans now avoided eye contact. The few who did speak to me offered the kind of pitying smiles reserved for people who'd made spectacularly bad decisions. When I got home, a courier was waiting with an envelope bearing the letterhead of Morrison, Blake and Associates, Nate's law firm. With shaking hands, I signed for what I somehow knew would change everything. The papers were clinical, precise, devastating. Petition for legal separation, temporary restraining order regarding marital assets, motion for emergency custody hearing. Each page was a nail in the coffin of the life I'd taken for granted. My joint bank account had been frozen pending the separation proceedings. My access to our credit cards had been suspended. The house, which was in Nate's name from before our marriage, was now legally off-limits to me, except for supervised visits to collect personal belongings. I called the number listed for Nate's attorney, desperate to explain, to negotiate, to somehow undo what felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Mrs. Dorsey, the crisp voice on the phone informed me. My client has been very clear about his intentions. He's seeking primary custody of your daughter and dissolution of the marriage. If you wish to contest these actions, I suggest you retain your own counsel. My own counsel. With what money? My salary barely covered my car payment and student loans, and now I had no access to our joint savings. I tried calling Nate directly, but his number went straight to voicemail. You've reached Nathaniel Dorsey. I'm unavailable to take your call, but if this is a legal matter, please contact my attorney at... Even his voicemail message had changed, formal and distant, erasing 8 years of marriage with professional efficiency. That evening, I sat in Mom's living room while she and Aaron tried to make sense of the legal documents. Their earlier bravado had evaporated, replaced by a growing understanding of how serious this had become. He can't just take Claire away from you, Aaron said, but she sounded less certain than before. Actually, Mom said quietly, studying the custody petition, it looks like he might be able to. He's claiming you've been emotionally absent, that your behavior has been erratic, that Claire has been asking questions about divorce. She asked one question, I protested. Kids ask things like that. According to this, she's been asking her teacher about it too, and her school counselor, and Nate's father. Mom looked up at me with something I'd never seen before. Doubt. Roxane, what exactly have you been saying around Claire? I tried to remember. Had I complained about Nate in front of her? Had I taken phone calls from Leo while she was in the room? The past few months blurred together in a haze of resentment and justification. I never said anything inappropriate, I said, but even as I spoke, I remembered moments, Claire asking why Daddy seemed sad, why I was always on my phone, why I went out so much more than I used to. My phone rang. Unknown number, but I answered anyway, desperate for any distraction from the legal papers spread across the coffee table. Is this Roxane Dorsey? Yes. This is Patricia Chen from Channel 7 News. We're doing a story about social media infidelity and its impact on families. We understand you might have some insights to share? I hung up immediately, my hands shaking. How had a reporter gotten my number? How did they know about any of this? The answer came in the form of a text from Tina. Girl, you need to see this. Attached was a screenshot of a local news website. The headline made my blood freeze. Local attorney seeks custody after wife's social media affair goes viral. The article was brief but devastating. It mentioned the Instagram photo, described it as part of a pattern of behavior, and quoted anonymous sources about my emotional affair with a coworker. Worst of all, it included the photo itself, now viewed by thousands of strangers who were commenting with their own judgments and opinions. She's a cheater. Poor guy. Hope he gets custody. This is why marriage is dead. Trashy behavior, feel bad for the kid. I scrolled through comment after comment, each one a judgment on my character, my marriage, my fitness as a mother. Someone had even found my work information and posted it, along with suggestions that people call my employer to Let them know what kind of person they're employing. My phone started ringing constantly. Reporters, bloggers, even a few people claiming to be from talk shows. I turned it off, but the damage was done. I was now a public example of everything wrong with modern marriage, a cautionary tale shared and reshared across social media platforms. How did this get out? I asked Mom, who was staring at her own phone in horror. I don't know, she said quietly. But Roxane, some of these comments are from people we know, from your coworkers, from parents at Claire's school. The full scope of what I'd lost was finally becoming clear. Not just my marriage, not just my job security, but my reputation, my standing in the community, my daughter's sense of security and normalcy. That night, lying in my childhood bed while my phone buzzed with notifications I was afraid to read, I finally understood what Nate had meant when he'd said I'd become someone he didn't recognize. I didn't recognize myself either. Somewhere in my pursuit of excitement and validation, I'd lost sight of everything that actually mattered, and now it might be too late to get any of it back. 3 weeks later, I stood in family court wearing a borrowed suit and a look that couldn't hide the wreckage underneath. My court-appointed lawyer whispered strategy I already knew was useless. Across the room, Nate sat straight-backed beside his legal team, all calm professionalism and quiet strength, the man I'd once thought too steady to be exciting. He didn't look at me once. His attorney spoke first, dismantling my life with surgical precision. The texts, the late-night calls, the photo with Leo, it all appeared on the courtroom screen under cold fluorescent light. Each piece of evidence wasn't just proof of infidelity. It was proof of how thoroughly I'd failed to protect the people who loved me. Then Claire's teacher testified. She talks about her parents fighting, she said softly. She told me her mommy has a new friend and her daddy cries at night. The judge's pen scratched notes. I could see the judgment forming long before she spoke it aloud. When I finally took the stand, I tried to explain. I said I'd been lonely, that I'd only wanted to feel seen again, but every word sounded small. So your husband's long work hours justify emotional infidelity? The judge asked. I said no, then yes, then nothing at all. The verdict came fast. Custody to Nate, supervised visitation for me, the house, the savings, gone, and then the words that hollowed me out completely. You prioritized your desires over your child's stability. Outside, I got the text from work, fired. Then another, from Leo. A single sentence. Hope it was worth it. I blocked him instantly, but the echo lingered. That night, I called Claire from my childhood bedroom. She asked if I'd made a mistake. I told her yes. A very big one, and for the first time, I said it without excuses. Later, scrolling through social media I shouldn't have opened, I saw Nate's new post, a photo of him and Claire at the park, both smiling, both free of the shadow I'd cast. The caption read, "New beginnings." It hurt, but it also felt right. She would be safe with him. She'd have a parent who showed up, who didn't chase attention disguised as love. I used to think I'd outgrown the quiet life Nate offered. Now I understood it had been peace, not boredom. Loyalty, not weakness. Love, not habit. I'd lost them, and it was my fault. But maybe someday, when the noise inside me finally settled, I could become someone worthy of being trusted again. Someone who didn't confuse chaos with passion, someone real. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.